You know I'm right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, entertainment, entrepreneurship, and so much more. Nick Durst here, along with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, today we are finally doing an in-person studio podcast, and we have our great guest to thank for that.
Yes, we welcome Ankur Garg to the program. Ankur, right? The host of the In the Lab podcast and the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of AKG Creative.
Thanks, guys.
Ankur, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing great. I feel like sometimes CEO stands for Chief Entertainment Officer, but we kind of just go with it.
Yeah, CEO. You can also be the CFO, the Chief Fun Officer. So there's a lot of those
I don't think I've ever met a CFO who's actually the fun officer, though. It's always the other way around.
Right. I think Shaquille O'Neal is the CFO for Carnival Cruises. So
I think he is.
Is he really?
Yeah. Because Carnival Cruises is owned by Mickey Arlson, who is the owner of the Heat. So they have a good relationship, those two.
Have you ever been on a Carnival cruise?
I have.
There's no way Shaq is fitting on one of those boats.
I got to tell you
There's
this.
no way.
For real, I was on a cruise and he was on the cruise.
Stop it.
We was in Manhattan. We left from New York 2018, I think it was, right after I got engaged. Me and my wife went on a cruise, and they were like bringing in all this camera equipment to film stuff at like this barbecue place, which was called Guy's Pig and Anchor. Carnival's not paying us for this. They should. If you want to send me on a cruise, Carnival, kind of at me. But they bring in all the equipment, and I'm like, what's going on here? What are they filming? So it's Guy Fieri's barbecue joint. All of a sudden, this huge guy is coming with a captain's hat on, and it was Shaq to film a commercial for Carnival. So he didn't start on the cruise, but there's no way he could fit in the room, a bedroom or the bathroom. But he was in a common area, and I was like, wow, Shaq's on the cruise. I couldn't believe it.
Shaq's got to be like swimming in the ocean, right? That's the only way.
He's got to duck everywhere he goes.
He's just a massive guy. But yeah, that was crazy. That I saw Shaq in person. So obviously, you in your career, you've dealt with a lot of personalities, celebrities, athletes, and whatnot. But everybody has their origin stories, their roots. Talk to us about being a Terp, going to University of Maryland. When you go there, you're studying business and economics. What was your goal going in there, and how much did that change for you over your 4 years in the school?
That's a great question, man. I love Maryland. Beautiful campus. I got there the year after they won the NCAA tournament. So, basketball was like a huge thing, but they just built that brand new stadium. And, honestly, was my intention to go get an education? Probably not. It was to get out of New Jersey for a bit, because I had, been under the being raised by immigrant parents and like the heavy standard of being a doctor, engineer, so on and so forth. But I got to school and I did 3 years, and I graduated a year early because the dean gave me special permission to take extra credits as long as I could schedule it. But the bet he made with me to make it happen was that I had to win student body government. So like the freshman appointment for the business school at Maryland. So me being ingenuitive and figuring out how I was going to do it, I ran down the Subway and I got a bunch of like half off coupons. And then I just bought everyone Subway sandwiches. And I started handing out gift cards for Subway. And I was like, if you vote for me, I'll give you a free Subway sandwich. And like for a college kid, that's everything, right? Not having to go to the dining hall and getting to go eat out on like the main street. And so I won with, I think it was 118 votes, because that's all it takes to win an election in Maryland. And the dean let me do whatever I wanted. So, I took 24 credits a semester. It's kind of crazy, right? Imagine taking 7 or 8 midterms or finals. Yeah. But I got out of there as quick as I could and then went on into business.
When you were there, it seems you were pretty busy. Did you get involved in other school activities, or did you do any internships?
Yeah, man, I played sports. I became a mortgage broker because at that time in New Jersey, there's a bunch of people in my network that were doing mortgages. This is before the big crash and everything that happened. So I was actually commuting at one point back and forth from Jersey to Maryland. I would have classes Mondays and Wednesdays, and then I would crash on a fraternity brother's couch from Monday night and Tuesday night, and then I would drive back up Wednesday and work for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, closing mortgages. It was kind of crazy.
So talk about creating AKG Creative. AKG
yeah,
Creative.
man. So I grew up in the 90s, right? So 90s television, there were certain shows that taught me everything I needed to know about persuasion and persuasive language. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with Saved by the Bell, Zach Morris, Kelly Lepowski, so on and so forth. Zach Morris taught me everything I needed to know about business. Literally, my man could get away with anything. He could convince anyone in a room to do whatever he wanted. And then there's like a couple famous scenes from Family Matters, Full House, so on and so forth, that really kind of shaped how I went into conversations with people. And
you didn't like Boy Meets World, huh?
So, I mean, the Savages didn't teach me much, but Topanga was definitely one of my first crushes, for sure. So, I mean, but then, Kelly Kapowski came into my life. And
what about the Pink Ranger? What about Kimberly Jo Johnson?
I wasn't allowed to watch the Pink Ranger.
Too violent.
My parents said the outfits were too tight, and so they would turn it off whenever they saw it on the TV. But essentially, I grew up in an environment where I was younger than everyone around me. And so I'm sure you guys remember high school dances. Like, guys didn't have Riz. We didn't have game back then, right? There's guys on one side, girls on the other side. And I was going to, like, after parties for different events and different shows. And, like, there was no chance that me, a kid whose balls haven't even dropped yet, right? I barely have facial hair. I'm Indian, so I had a little bit of facial hair, but not enough. These girls wouldn't give me the time of day, right? They're a year and a half, 2 years older than me, for anyone who's in my grade. And they just, there was no chance. So I had to figure out what my edge was going to be. So I became a DJ. I've met DJs at these parties, and I asked them to teach me how to DJ. But I learned really, really fast that DJs don't know how to make real money. Mm-hmm. The real money was the promoters, the guys throwing the club parties and everything that went along with it. And to be a good promoter, you got to have flyers, got to have a website, all these types of things backing you up. So I started designing my own flyers. I was trash. It was so bad. It was almost as bad as Quavo's response to Chris Brown from the rap battle. I don't know if you guys are listening to all that, but it was terrible. My first flyers were so bad. I eventually got better. I built websites, and I had the skill set throughout college where I was building my fraternity chapters websites and doing flyers for different things that were happening. But on graduating, I started my first agency called Crimson Lab. I just always thought having a color associated with your design company was going to help. Eventually, Crimson Lab got renamed to AKG Creative. But the whole vision here was taking everything I learned from Zach Morris, understanding graphic design and websites. I mean, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but like making MySpace pages growing up and understanding what gets people to actually follow something, like something, engage with it. I mean, it's not hard to imagine why in 2011, me and my friends kind of invented social media influencers when Instagram started. I just took all this, understanding of psychology and people belonging and promotional attribution for something and applied it to Instagram and PayPal buy now buttons, and the rest is history.
So what was your MySpace song? You got the page.
Who was in your top 8?
Who was your top 8?
No, it was
Zack Attack.
I mean, it was definitely bad boy music, right? Because growing up in New Jersey, I mean, Puff Daddy and Notorious B.I.G. and everything else that was happening back then. But I'm pretty sure Jay-Z took over my MySpace page at one point. But I mean, again, I was just girl crazy. I was trying to get in front of the opposite sex and see what my edge was going to be. I think I had a ton of followers. I think I must have had at least like 1,000 or 2,000. And for back then, that was a big deal, right? Because you couldn't run ads or anything back then to grow your audience.
Right.
But it was what it was.
So talk to us about your time then as CEO with Shredz. You're talking about all this influencer marketing. And at the time, that's really what they were able to do to kind of grow their brand. So it seems like you were the brains behind the operation in that aspect. Talk to us about how you kind of built that whole marketing thing through. Let's get those influencers. Let's get things on social media.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just to correct, I wasn't CEO. Arvin was CEO. I was the number 2 over there, COO, CS. I just named whatever name I wanted for whatever week it was of the month. But the general principle was that at a time in an industry where everyone was doing phone sales and calling every brick and mortar location, every gym, every supplement store to try to pick up a product, they had no interest in talking to a new company. We had to figure out how to make our own lane. So I think I remember in 2010, 2011, we called over 3,300 supplement stores, and like 23 of them picked us up. And so, I mean, we must have made like $8 or $9 grand in the revenue for the whole year. Like, but them buying like 6 bottles here, 6 bottles there, like nothing great. When there was an opportunity to kind of structure things around people posting like images, because Instagram was in its nascent stages, and I mean, you're selling supplements, right? So fitness. If you're showing a guy in shape and like these are the products I take, chances are other people are going to listen to them, right? These are the early days of like establishing clout through social media. And we started building these athletes and their personas and creating opportunities to support their audience growing. And then additionally, they would grow our audience for the brand. And we had thousands upon thousands of landing pages. It was intense. I was psychotic. I was obsessed with building custom user experiences for every single person. Because if you found the supplements from a blonde hair, blue eyed girl, you should only see blonde hair, blue eyed girls throughout your entire checkout process. If you found it from a Latinx male who has a certain physique and a certain figure, I shouldn't all of a sudden show you a tatted up white guy, right? Like it's not going to make sense. Like you came for a certain audience, you should see that through and through from the whole process. And that's kind of what some of our secret sauce was.
How do you think the evolution of social media, because remember, from the time that you graduated up until that 2010, 11, 12 period, that's really when digital media started booming, right? You saw the MySpaces of the world, the Facebooks, but you also saw YouTube take off in a way that no other platform had previously done. So when you started there was a lot of kind of grinding legwork, right? How was social media the last 10 to 15 years, the evolution of it, made those types of jobs and those roles easier?
Damn, that's a loaded question. Okay, so the reality is people are always going to tune in to some type of entertainment or information outlet, right? At once upon a time, it was newspapers. Once upon a time, it was magazines, right? Like the Mad Men era and everything that happened over there. Social media has lowered the barrier to entry for people to share information. And it's gotten cheaper as time goes. What ends up happening when that barrier to entry gets cheaper, the quality of that content will start skewing in different directions. You're either going to get a mass amount of high quality stuff in smaller snippets, or you're going to get a lot of trash, right? I mean, and there is a lot of trash on social media right now.
It's oversaturated, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that it's oversaturated. But what's great is that a lot of the businesses, like including Facebook, Apple, they've kind of caught on and they figured out how to optimize this experience for anyone who's on it. Like, don't get me wrong, there's concerns of like, oh, are they listening to me? I mean, I grabbed my wife's phone and I was like, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5, just so she would see PS5 ads for weeks before Christmas, right? And I mean, the reality is it worked, right? There were some ads shown to her and like there's a whole system and psychology behind it. But at the end of the day, it's making my life better, right? If Alexa's listening to the time of day that I leave the house and it's giving me traffic reports of like, hey, maybe you should wait 5 minutes because there's like a traffic thing that's happening over here in Springfield somewhere, then why not, right? I just feel like anyone who's afraid of that technology isn't really taking advantage of like some of the cool stuff that's happening.
So you've held various C-suite jobs over the years, some of which have overlapped. So talk to us about how you stay organized. How do you compartmentalize yourself? How do you structure and organize your day-to-day? And how did you juggle a couple of different things at once?
Bro, juggling all of that stuff is insane, right? I think it's just one of those things where certain types of people are built in a way where the dopamine hit you get when you finish a checklist, it's unreal compared to everything else that you have in life. So as silly as it is to say, like I've seen all these memes on TikTok and Instagram. It's like, make your bed. Like when I make my bed, it's like a thing I check off in my day, right? I then have like a morning routine. I then get to the office. There's certain things I need to do. And that dopamine momentum that I've reached at that point allows me to then hit my checklist. Man, I remember we were so psychotic at Shredz at one point. Me and Arvin had this rule. We wouldn't go to bed until something got checked off on our checklist. And there were times that there was like a big national launch. We'd only have one thing on our checklist. So we would go 4 or 5 days without sleeping just because it was like, yo, we didn't check off anything on our checklist. We got to keep going. Now I'm a little bit smarter about it. Like make a cup of coffees on my checklist so I don't have to worry about, not sleeping for whatever it is. SaaS tools crush it for me. I mean, this day and age, I'm using ClickUp regularly. And organizing the tasks by priority and importance, I mean, that's kind of the only way I can manage myself.
So talk about productivity for a second, because I think a lot of routines work for a lot of different people. Some people are just morning people. Some people are up at the crack ass of dawn, 5, 6 a.m. in the morning. Some people need to sleep through the morning and are just more productive at night. Which of those two would you have considered yourself? Are you more of the morning person, the night person? Because remember, you were a DJ, right? You're doing all the stuff, that kind of lends itself to doing nightlife stuff. And then with the later jobs that you got, you became a morning person, right? So talk about productivity. Where were you more efficient? And it's not really a one-size-fits-all model for everybody. But if there's kind of like a little nugget or a tidbit of, advice that you would give to somebody who's looking to kind of structure their day in a better way, what would you give?
I think the question is flawed, so I'm going to try and restructure it for us, right? I don't think the reality is like someone's a morning person or a night person, especially when it comes to productivity. I think it comes down to, are you a self-motivated starter, or do you need external motivation to get something started? So, for example, some people won't like start work without a cup of coffee or without a meal in them, or the right environment, like a clean room or whatever. Then there's guys like me that I just got to hit one thing on my checklist, whether it's like untying my shoelaces and then retying it, or like walking like a half a mile around my office or whatever it's going to be, and all of a sudden I'm ready to go. It's just one of those things where, at least for me, it doesn't matter what time of day that I want to get started. I have to have a certain amount of momentum going for me, and then I can just keep working. But I guess that's what makes me a little obsessive and extremist at work. But it is what it is.
A little OCD. All right, let's talk about the podcast space. Nick and I have an amazing podcast, all because of him, brilliant mind of Nick Durst. You host In the Lab, right? So talk about hosting In the Lab and how the show has evolved.
Yeah, so, AI is awesome. I'm not going to lie to you guys. So In the Lab is actually just an AI tool that has my voice programmed, and I write articles, and then that AI voice just reads the articles and goes out there. I think we're at 14,000 subscribers right now. I'm literally just taking the emails and conversations I have with clients with the questions that they ask, and I'm providing the answers publicly to everyone. So people who've asked me like, hey, like now that Apple's changed the privacy settings, our ads aren't working anymore, what do we do? There's like 3 episodes on how to solve that problem if you're a direct-to-consumer brand. Other people are telling me like, yo, shipping rates are sky high right now. How do I handle this situation? I'm like, look, here are my broker's contact information, called them up. This is what I would set up. Did you know that there's things like last mile, like UPS SurePost, and like I create episodes on that and I go into detail. But that show, honestly, it's a SEO hack on the AKG Creative website. And I mean, I'm definitely passionate about it, but the Disruption podcast, that's the one that I've been really pushing hard these days. We begin all the different influencers to fly in, and we're just talking about disruption marketing. And it's probably the one thing I love most in life. It's like figuring out how to capture that audience's attention through a video ad or a graphic or whatever it's going to be. The whole idea of stopping the scroll. I mean, that's what the agency does for AKG day in and day out.
Yeah, awesome stuff there. Obviously, the AI stuff is insane right now that you're able to do a whole podcast without having to do anything but then writing, obviously, and then you don't need to really worry about your SEO score for your podcast. It's already from the articles, so that's awesome. So, I know you talked about the other podcast. Obviously, you're flying guests in, so you need a nice space, and we're sitting in it right now. So, talk to our audience about this awesome facility you're building out here at the studio and everything that went into making this facility.
Is your podcast cursing friendly?
Yeah.
Fuck WeWork. These guys would not let me bring a single camera on site. It was the worst, the whole situation. I tried Industrious, WeWork, Carney Point, every one of these like local office areas. Even Regis, they would give me problems if I wanted to bring cameras in. It wasn't going to work for me trying to run a marketing agency in 2024. So I fortunately met Ken Majmudar, who owns FlexWork, which is this office here in Springfield that we're sitting in today. And I mean, Ken had this beautiful space with 17 different offices, 8 cubicles, complete kitchen, conference rooms, like the works. He was in here alone. There was like 4 or 5 offices rented, that people coming in and out. And then I just saw an opportunity here. We're like, hey, Ken, would you be down and let me kind of do my own thing here, bring cameras? Ken's like, do whatever you want. I just want to shoot my videos for free. I'm like, awesome. I want to shoot my videos for free too. So let's do this. So we partnered together in the space and the idea, and we converted some of the conference rooms into podcast rooms. And we actually have a really beautiful basement space that we're reconstructing right now that I'm super stoked about. And the vision here is just like, podcasting shouldn't be this complicated for people, right? Everyone's worried about like, what equipment should I buy? Am I going to get like gypped out on this $25 set that I found on Amazon? Yeah, you're going to get what you pay for, right? Time like around us right now is probably 24 grand worth of equipment. And the reality is that you don't have to buy all that if you want to have a show. So we rent out the space for $75 an hour for the raw audio and the video, which at the end of the day, I mean, it's 2024. You guys got to have video, right? That's what people want to see, the vertical reels, the YouTube shorts, the long format version on YouTube, Spotify. We actually had this awesome partnership with Spotify early on where they allowed us to syndicate video podcasts. So we were one of like the first 12 partners that they allowed that for. So that was kind of cool because Spotify is investing billions of dollars to grow its platform. I mean, they signed Joe Rogan, right? They wanted to make sure that people came to Spotify just to listen to their shows. But just imagine like if you had an opportunity to like bring your grandparent onto a podcast and just interview them, and that video footage and that audio would live forever. It'd be the opportunity to capture content and things that live beyond just a photo. So I would love for this to end up being something that people can rent whenever they want for $75, which is it's cheaper than an escape room, right? It's cheaper than a night of bowling, to be honest, right? And I feel like it's something that's going to last forever. But at the same time, there's all these entrepreneurs that are like struggling, and they need to show the world that they're thought leaders in their space. And I'm providing them an opportunity to do that here at FlexWork.
Well, it is gorgeous space. It's incredibly modern. Nick and I had the opportunity to look at the basement and everything that you said, and it's just amazing. So, we wish you the best of luck continuing to flesh it out and with everything moving forward. So you're a serial entrepreneur. Since 2020, Grill Party Barbecue, Ammave Sports Nutrition, on top of the FlexWork stuff. So talking to us about being a serial entrepreneur, wearing multiple hats, dipping your feet into a couple of different endeavors and projects, and the gratifying experience of being able to try to help some of these projects get off the ground.
You know what it is? I feel like entrepreneurs just have audacity, right? That's the word that I would use to answer that question, because I've always defined entrepreneurs as people who like see that there's a better way to do something out there in the world, whether it's a cheaper product or just a more expensive solution or like something to make things more efficient for people. And then we have the audacity to go out there to try and convince other people that we're right and give us what's in your wallet in exchange because we're right. Man, it takes all of the confidence in the world to go out there to convince those people to get behind it. And I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'd say I'm a serial problem solver because I constantly see problems that need to be solved in the world, right? Whether it's ridiculous statistics like Harvard Business Review saying that 90% of startups fail in the first 18 months. Like Gary Vee wants to buy the Jets. I want to change that damn statistic. I want to make it 89% and I'll feel like I accomplished something in my life. Or, just trying to solve the solution of how to shoot a podcast, right? And there's an easy way for me to solve that problem. And I guess I don't know how to say no sometimes when all the different problems are in front of me. But, just like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. I guess I just got bestowed with some of this power and knowledge, and now I have the responsibility to try and fix some of it.
Would you say that you're addicted to having responsibility, addicted to being an entrepreneur, problem solver? Do you take vacations? Are you ever shutting your mind off, or do you need to always be like, I need to figure out what's going on right now?
So that's a great question, man. I feel like there's entrepreneurs that have never made it, and then there's entrepreneurs who have made it. Once you've made it, you lose the addiction to caring about some of those things, right? So, like, Shredz got to the point where we were a 9-figure conglomerate with all the different brands and projects and everything else underneath us. I think the reality is that I have a number now. It's 10 million. Once I have 10 million, I don't need to work as hard as I'm working. I'd rather run a small VC where I could help other people with their businesses, do coaching, kind of pick my own hours. I got married recently in the past year, and my wife and I are going to hopefully have kids soon. And I mean, when I heard different people like Denzel and Matthew McConaughey say things like, the only people that remember that you worked late are your kids, like that hits home. And I don't think it would be my priority anymore to be a workhorse. I'm still capable of doing it as often as I need to. But once I get to that number that I have set now, I know that addiction is definitely gone. I want to set up the next generation and just help anyone I can.
Awesome. So I got to ask you, because behind every great man is a great woman. I'm married as well. I have a child. how did you meet your wife? My buddy Joe here, he's still on the prowl. I mean, you're a Jersey guy. He loves going down the Jersey Shore. So how did you meet your wife? How'd you meet your wife? And any advice for Joe to find his lucky lady?
Joe, if you need to have some disruption marketing on your dating profiles, I got you. I
Actually, may need
We
a
got
little
to
bit of
fix
that.
Joe's SEO score on Tinder.
I had some incredible riz on the dating apps. I'm not gonna lie.
I never cared for them. They're not for me.
I guess being in a relationship isn't for you either.
Oh, wow.
I mean, hey, social media has improved so much. You were so brave that you started a podcast. Now you just got to jump into the dating pool the right way, man. So I met my wife on Bumble. It's quite a funny story. I mean, it's the kind of stuff like Hallmark movies are written about. We matched. My move was to immediately get off the app, right? Get a phone number, schedule a date. Like, we're not trying to be pen pals, talking back and forth. So we scheduled the first date, and I mean, I think it was like a couple days before the date or the day of the date. She reached out, and she's like, "Hey, I'm not ready." I'm like, "What do you mean you're not ready?" She goes, "I don't think I'm over my ex yet, so I just need a little bit more time." And I'm just like, all right, maybe this girl's playing hard to get. So I'm like, why don't we just be friends? Like, let's just follow each other on social media, and like, I'll help you through whatever you're going through. I think a month passed of, you know, us being pen pals and liking each other's stuff on social. And I'm like, all right, this girl's never going to have a date. She kind of just like withered away into the history of like my followers. 9 months later, I'm shooting a podcast in my apartment in Jersey City with my best friend called the Rockstar Podcast. And people are like, yo, you don't shoot enough behind the scenes stuff, right? Like, you know, me holding the camera and being like, hey, you know, we're on set, so on and so forth. So I start posting some behind the scenes things. And it's one of those loft style apartments that kind of looks like a warehouse. Yo, lo and behold, this girl slides in my DMs. And she's like, you live in a warehouse? And I'm like, who is this? I'm like, this looks like a hot girl. I'm like, oh, this is that girl from way back when. And I'm like, only one way to find out. You got to come over so I can cook you dinner. And she goes, maybe I will. And I'm like, oh, snap. Are you actually ready to have this date? And she was like, I am. So we immediately scheduled that first date. And I just kept asking for more dates. And, you know, 2.5 years later, we're now married. And here we are.
The rest is history.
Good things come to those who wait.
There's a lot
And those who get on the dating apps.
There's a lot you can learn here because
There were similarities.
Jersey
yeah.
City, that's
Jersey
where you
City,
just
loft style
Jersey,
apartment. Yeah.
messaging on Instagram.
I used to be over there. I recently moved back home.
So I'll drop some tea here. So my go-to incredible move on these profiles was that my profile would say, I look for 3 things in a girl before I ask for her number. Everything else is negotiable. And so what do you think the girls would message with whenever we match? Like, what are the 3 things, right? So I'd pick 2 things that were in their profile. Like, you know, if there's a dog in the profile, I'd be like, you know, has to love dogs, right? And if there's like an outdoorsy thing, like has to love hiking. And I'd pick the 3rd thing, something that you couldn't know from their profile. And I'm like, yeah, I guess the jury's still out on you, but we could find out on our first date, right? So it's like, do you love tequila? Or, you know, do you know how to cook? Or, you know, do you know how to chop whatever? Or like, you know, random things like that. The girl's immediately in qualifying mode. She's got to prove to you that she's got that 3rd thing, right? And you start up that date and you go on and you do what you need to do. It works every time.
How about that, Joe?
Your wife wanted an encore, right?
You know what's funny about that? I don't know if anyone's made that joke to her yet. I
Wow.
need to ask her if she's
good.
heard that one.
That's a good one, Joe.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sitting right after you. Well, it worked out for you, just like everything here with your career right now. But what would you say in your life or your career was your defining I'm right moment? What we mean by that, it's a time or place where you wanted to pursue something. You asked somebody for advice. They said, don't do that. That's an awful idea. It's not going to work out for you. And you were like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And in the end, you will see why it is that I'm right.
Yeah, I have so many of those. If I had to pick one definitive moment, it's probably the Olympia. 2013, it's when Shredz and Arvin and myself did our first like expo. I went to the Arnold, which I don't know if you're familiar with, like bodybuilding expos. It's in Ohio. This thing was a shit show. It was just like 200,000 people, bodybuilders sitting behind a 6-foot folding table, like leaning over to shake hands and sign on something on a signature card. It was boring. No one was having any fun. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. So we got a very large booth. There was 11 booths. I don't know if you've been to expos, but 11 booths is a big deal. I created a whole like Six Flags ride structure to get into the booth. Like, so there's like, facts as you're walking along and everything. And then once you got into the booth, it was just a party. I had a DJ. I had like an area that you could hang out with the athletes. You could talk to them. Everyone got like a timed amount of time that you'd be with them. And then afterwards, you would go through the store, right, and potentially see our new products and buy something, just like you would at a Six Flags ride, and then get out of there. I remember building the booth, and then midday on the first day, looking around, because we had like a crane, right, and just looking around the rest of the show. Everyone at the show was at our booth. We had 10,000 people in line.
Wow.
And no one else was at any other booth. The whole rest of the show just looked totally dead. And I remember thinking, like, okay, well, like, we did something here where people are waiting in line 3+ hours just to come see us. I mean, it's a movement, right, at that point. And then, like, I think I gave out my first signature. Like, some guy was like, "You're Ankur Garg. Can you please sign this?" And I'm like, "Okay, cool, man. I got you."
You have a celebrity on our podcast to add to the growing list of celebrities. It's a very, very good story. So what I do here is if Nick has a question on the rundown, I just ask it, right? So I tend to be more of the spiritual kind of person between the two of us. He still needs a little bit of convincing. But we like asking this question periodically to the guests that we have on. So my last question for you is, what is your zodiac sign, and do you relate with it?
Oh, man, I'm a Scorpio through and through. I think I recently found out there's actually more the zodiac signs. There's like a 13th one or something like that. If you go back into the science and you actually look into it, I'm whatever that 13th one is.
Oh, so you're born between, what is it, Scorpio, Sagittarius?
Scorpio, Libra,
Ophiclus?
I think.
Right?
Whatever that thing's called. But
the 13th, I don't think there's a 13th sign.
That's more
I
recent.
think that's fictitious, but...
Well, more importantly, Scorpio through and through. Very intense personality. I have extreme certain areas. I'm very romantic. I am a fighter. Anytime I'm like around really like gypsy-ish people that are like, what is your sign? And I'm like, I'm a Scorpio. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So yeah, I think it definitely embodies me for sure.
Yeah, there's a deep understanding of astrology that I have that Nick does not have. So I go into depth with it. My rising sign is actually Scorpio. So I tend to relate to people who have Scorpio placements. And for you, I don't know if you've ever been told this before, a little knowledge before we wrap up the podcast here. Scorpios, and you could tell them over here by the eyes, right?
Oh, yeah?
They have very intense eyes and gazes. Okay. Right. That's something
so interesting. People always tell me my eyes are why they trust me.
Right.
And I don't understand it at all, but I just kind of go with it. But good to know. What's your sign?
Me, I'm a Gemini.
He's got two sides to him.
He's my kryptonite.
You never know what side you're gonna get from it.
The Gemini's a kryptonite. Like for Scorpios, it's never a good combination.
Well, I think we're doing a good job with this podcast so far. We'll see.
I think we're doing a good job.
There's always the outlier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so I'm a Cancer. Just wrap that up. But Nick and I, we share this info with people all the time. There's a very, very patriotic thing between us because he was born on Memorial Day and I was born on the 4th of July. So even though he's a Gemini and I'm a Cancer and kind of the elements don't really necessarily match at first, there's that whole patriotic American flag underlying theme to the podcast here, which is great.
And that's why you named it You Know I'm Right.
Well, that's for him.
No, you know I'm right. Well, I give the credit usually to my wife for the name because, sometimes couples get in some tiffs and, we tended to say, you know I'm right to each other. And then I was launching the podcast and she was like, that'd be a good name for the show. And 280 plus episodes later, that's where we're at. You know I'm right.
I think we're doing a good job. I wouldn't know about the wife part though.
Wow. After
One
this,
day.
we're gonna get your Bumble set up.
Right. You got to reestablish me on all those sites.
I got you, man. You just pull them up, and I'll tell you what questions to put in, and watch. Your matches will skyrocket.
And I'll steal your whole 3 question.
And they'll be having a great summer down the Jersey Shore with all the ladies.
Did you used to go down the Jersey Shore when you were a DJ?
Yeah, dude. I have DJ'd everywhere, man.
You did?
What was your DJ name?
DJ Ace.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I like that.
I had residencies in New York. I even bought a nightclub here in New Jersey with some of my friends. I owned a very small piece of it. And then I DJ'd in UK, the Aruba Film Festival. I had music videos. I just realized I was never going to be Tiesto. So I was like, this is what it is. I've done a lot of big weddings and other things like that. And it's time to pack up the turntables. But I did bring them here. They're actually right behind us
Nice.
on the floor. I was thinking about maybe making some TikToks because I see some guys blowing up with the mixes that they're making. But I used to do what's called lyric matching before like the machines did it for you. So, who knows? We'll see.
Absolutely love that. You got to travel the world a little bit with the DJ gig. All right. Final last question. I have to ask. Jersey Shore guy. What was your favorite place down there?
Ooh. I think Long Beach Island's definitely my favorite, right? The water's actually something you can consider going into, unlike other parts of the Jersey Shore. And then when Avenue and like all that kind of stuff came up, like that area is always really nice, and I enjoyed. Like their boardwalk has like some street food and some cool things that were out there. They're always fun. It was actually like my fourth date. I took the wife on out that way, and she loved it. And Nettie's House of Spaghetti, man. That's like the spot to take someone. If you need a date spot, take the girl to Nettie's.
What about is the House of Music still down there?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's always weddings there, though.
It's a nice little spot to snack.
Don't take a date to House of Music.
No, I won't. No. It's we did a family thing. We got ice cream there.
Take her to get spaghetti, man. I'm telling you, Nettie's. That's the move.
So you're a Point Pleasant guy, and you like Jenks?
Yeah, I've been there over the years. I mean, it's one of those weird things. When I came back to Jersey, it was right at the beginning of COVID, and because I was in Pittsburgh for 3 years, and I just haven't really explored much. I've just been working nonstop. So like all these spots I grew up remembering and loving, I mean, some of them are closed. They're not even around anymore. But at Jenks, I mean, I think that also survive a Holocaust if it had to.
I'm a DJ's guy,
Fair
through
enough.
and through.
Fair
I
enough.
think it's the New York Yankees of the Jersey Shore, and I know a lot of people who work there, and they're very, very kind to me. So I always had a good time over
Nick's
there.
like an Applebee's guy.
I love Applebee's. I mean, my wife first stayed at Applebee's.
22, right? The mix and match deal or whatever it is.
I don't remember. A long time ago, 2010. So going back quite some time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Well, guys, thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
Ankur, we really, really appreciate you. Thank you for having us record in this beautiful studio. This is amazing. We've really enjoyed our time here with you. And what we do here is the last words always go to our guests. So we know that you have some other things to share and promote. If you have any last words you want to throw in and mix in with that, by all means, go ahead. But once again, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you having Nick and I come out here and recording in the studio with you. And, we wish you the best of luck, you and your wife, and everything else moving forward.
Yeah, babe, I know that you're right. I'm wrong. Don't worry. These guys have taught me the lessons I need to hear. If I said anything I wasn't supposed to say on this podcast, I'm so sorry. It was the truth. You slid in my DMs. That's how we met. But yeah, no, anyone who wants to learn more about me, my socials are all Ankur K. Garg. Literally, that's my handle across everything. Or AKG Creative is our handle, everything there. If there's anyone at home that needs any help with branding or marketing or wants me to look at their dating profile, hit me up. I got you. And good luck, man. I think you're going to meet the girl of your dreams soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm going to manifest this for you.
There
You
you have
got to
it.
manifest
Some
it.
great last words, and that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. For our very special guest, DJ Ace, my co-host Joe Calabrese, I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.